Welcome to Cycles TV. This session of the Market Cycles Report is intended exclusively to provide information and education to help individuals better understand cycles and the markets. However, this information is not to be construed as professional advice as to the buying and selling of securities. In no event does the host express any opinion with respect to, or make recommendations regarding, the purchase or sale of any particular investment instrument. There is a very high degree of risk involved in trading. Buying or selling decisions are solely within the personal discretion of each individual. And now, enjoy the show. Here is your host.
Welcome to the Foundation for the Study of Cycles. My name is Lars Fontin and I'm happy to have a new episode on Monday, same time, same place here at Cycles TV. Today, coming up, I want to talk about special long-term cycles, often referred as panic cycles. Not sure if we talk about panic, but these long-term static cycles can help us. So one is the so-called 56 cycle in American business activity, discovered and made public in 1932 by a psychoanalyst called J.M. Funk. So I will tell you a little bit about this cycle, and might not be well known. And the second one is the so-called Benner cycle, which goes back, dated to 1875, something like that. So very, very long-term cycles discovered over around 100 years ago. They are static cycles, they provide a static framework, but the reason I want to go back to at least that long period is because of the current market situation and the current long-term cycle we are in. If you follow our episode, you are aware of, let me just go to this chart here, from the long-term cycle analysis on the weekly S&P. And this is, to be honest, nothing new. If you follow this chart here, you see that we have an active cycle around 184 weeks. Yeah, and it's clearly seen in the spectrum that this is the most prominent cycle here in this chart. And if we activate this cycle and have a look at this cycle, we already know that we are running on rails. Yeah, I often refer to this. We are running on rails based on this cycle. I started highlighting this cycle here already back last year, October, November, yeah, where I first presented this cycle here. And then I updated you on where we are in the cycle. So here, this is where we are in the cycle, still room to go, and still valid. The financial stress cycle some weeks ago, the volatility cycle some weeks ago. So I've updated this cycle even on shorter term daily cycles. This is all still valid. So there's nothing new in regards to current dynamic market cycles. But what makes this interesting, and I think that's what we are all looking for, at which point in time might the current decline come to an end, and their cycles can help us. And this long-term cycle, which is still there, points somewhere in the year of 2023. Not earlier, not later, right now. So it's a very valid cycle here. So, and therefore, let's make reference to even longer-term cycle framework, static cycle frameworks. And this is in the dynamic cycle analysis, which might, I don't know, come to the same conclusion and a different conclusion. And that's the reason for today bringing in these two cycles here. So let's get into it. The first topic, the so-called 56-year cycle. That's the starting point, to be honest. And let me get to the correct starting point here. Just a second. Which is this one here. And please now listen. Just a second here. So now we will start here. Just a second. And knowledge of the history is key to the future. Until governance standards are based upon the recognition of exterior forces that govern human conduct, history will repeat itself. This chart will predict the future, because the human makeup includes aspiration and greed, which traits are governed by endurance. Endurance is governed by exterior forces, which fluctuate in rhythm and tempo as constantly as the sun in its journey through the heavens. This was written 1932 by a man called James Morris Funk. And he also showed this nice chart here. This is what we refer to, the source I've now read out. This chart will predict the future. Is a 56 years cycle in American business activity, which can be nailed down in a more clear grid. It's not so much or so well known, but I think it needs a lot of respect to what he did by that point in time. And let's have a closer look at this grid here, or this 56-year cycle, which can be broken down into chunks of 9-year cycles and 56-year cycles, which, by the way, has been done by, so most of this attribution now needs to be go to David McMinn, who published this in our Cycles magazine. So please move to the cycles.org website. The Cycles magazine is free. It can be downloaded on our page. And David made a great article about this 56-year cycle, which is the source from Funk. And then it was evolved into the breakdown of 9 years clusters here. So the article is out there. And I want to give you the basic understanding now here in this video what this is about. But the main attribution and kudos goes to David McMinn. You will find also a lot of research he has done out there on this cycle here. So I'm just now summarizing what he mainly did here on this cycle. So this is the 56-year cycle grid in addition with the 9-year cycle sequence. It might look a little bit complicated, but I will take you through this chart here. So you see here the source. You can also download the original paper from David McMinn here. The source is referenced. So the key is Funk's 56-year cycle. And this is seen here by the so-called sequences here. So the sequence have numbers. It's not important here to understand the numbers. This stands for the sequence 52, sequence 5, sequence 14. And the sequence now in the chunks of 56 years goes down this line here. So starting 1970, 74. Add 56 years to this year here, and you will get to 1830. Now add the next cycle of 56 years, you will get to 1886. Now add another 56 years, and you will go down here. So this is how the 50 years, the 56-year cycle is going down here, down the line. So it just depends in which sequence you start here. So, but you can use any sequence here. So in this case, 1790. At 56 years, you will get to 1846. Add another 56 years, you will get to 1902. Add 56 years. And that's how the 56-year cycle sequence goes. Nothing special. But you can also read it from left to right. And there the 9-year sequence comes into play. So if you start with this sequence here, 7065, add 9 years and you will arrive at 7074. Add another 9 years, you will arrive at 7083. Add another 9 years, you will get to 7092. So you can break this in the so-called grid, which from top to down is the 56-year cycle from Funk, and then you can read it from left to right and divide it into cycles of 9 years length. That's the so-called 56 9-year cycle grid, which is mainly based on the discovery of funk, and David McMinn did a great job to convert this knowledge now that we can understand how this chart works, just now brought up to the table. Now, why is this grid important? And you will see this here at the top, which I have highlighted here. The timing of major financial crises are clustered with high significance in this grid. So this is what you can see here marked as red years and in addition blue years. So the years labeled in red are years in where we have seen important crisis in the US or the Western world. I mean, it's a little bit open what is a crisis, but there is Kindleberger made a proposal here, and you can read what financial crises are anyhow. And the significance in that case is that almost all financial crises going back to the year of 1760 can be found in this grid. It does not mean that every year here listed in this grid will see a financial crisis, but if we have financial crisis, or if we just plot or check financial crisis of the past, they are almost all the time found in this grid here. So the cycle seems to have a relation to financial crisis. And to explain that, let's check those, at least the most important ones, even before the famous year of 1929. But let's start here. 1837 was a very important panic in the US, which almost led to a lot of banks needed to shut down. And at this point in time, it led to a depression which lasted for over 5 years afterwards. So this was a key financial panic in the US with a very large depression afterwards. You see it? It's in this table here. So here's the year. It's plotted in this chart here. The next big crisis was 1857, the big financial crisis. You see here, it's just a picture. The source is Wikipedia here, the bank run on the financial panic of the year of 1857. So this was another serious financial panic here. We can continue. 1873, the start of the so-called Long Depression, which is then also the first depression which reached out the US and Europe at the same time. So as now economies are more and more connected, it was a long depression not only related to the US, also part of this grid here. So, and now you can continue to the most prominent panics here. So this is the year of 1893, where there was another big economic depression in the United States, which also lasted for around 4 years. And this is just the drawing of the panicked stockbrokers at this point in time in the year of 1893. So, and also this year is part of the 56/9-year cycle grid. All major panics are in this grid. Let's move forward. 1929. I mean, this is more or less what we often refer to, the Black Monday and Black Tuesday on the exchange here, with the Wall Street crash in the year of 1929, and the start of the so-called Great Depression then afterwards, 1929. So I just highlighted 5 very important financial panics, which also then concluded into a depression in the US and the European Union. And let's stick here on the top. So even the worst panics, which have a very long history, can be found in this grid here, and even more. I mean, we don't stop here. Even a lot of more panics are seen in this grid. And thanks to David McMinn, who brought this back to our knowledge here based on J.M. Fung's work here. The reason I bring this up to you today is what is not listed here, but please have a look at this count, which I'm highlighting with my cursor here. And now, if you've understood what I've explained to you, what's the number which goes in this box here? What's the number? Please think for yourself. Put on your brain, what's the number we want to see here? Counting down the sequence of 56 years, at 56 years to the year of 1967, where do you arrive? Question 1. Question 2. At 9 years to the year of 2014, go from left to right, where do you arrive? The year of 2023. This year is part of this grid. As said, it does not mean that there must be a financial panic, but if financial panics from the history are there, in most cases, they are part of this grid here. That's why I'm bringing up this chart here. Please remember what I showed you in the beginning. The long-term cycle, the dynamic long-term cycle of 180 weeks suggests the low in the year of 2023. This is what all current dynamic cycles more or less point to. Now bringing in this long-term static cycles, which is interesting, brings up just rolling forward this grid here, the year of 2023. Okay, I hope you got it. Read the article, reach out to the Cycles magazine. You will find more on that for sure here. So, even better. This is what you can read in the article. And now the summary. 27 out of 30 major panics between 1760 and 1930 appeared in this double sequence grid. It's an extension of what I showed you, but I will keep it up to the article if you read it. But the significance is outstanding. So even all major financial panics are in this grid here. This is the high significance of this cycle, that there is something behind. Even though Funk has not revealed or was not aware of what's the root cause for this cycle, but it's interesting that a cycle which is almost 100 years old, the static cycle, has this high significance in regard to keeping track of important financial panics and depressions, brings up the year 2022, 2023 in the sequence just counting forward. Got it? So that's very fascinating. If you use this long-term sequence of static cycles, which have been discovered over 100 years ago, bring up this situation, and checking the dynamic cycles, what we here do every Monday here when I'm here, and you know the cycles have not changed on global financial markets here. Now, just because cycle analysis is so fascinating, let's add another static cycle here to the mix, which is also very fascinating. Maybe you've heard about it. It's a so-called Banner cycle. However, maybe the original first publication was done by Tritch, so it's not clear if the first year is 8072 from Tritch or 8075 from Banner. So it's not really known who was the first who published this cycle. However, remember the year it was published. 1872, 75, doesn't matter anyhow. 1870. This cycle was published by a farmer. It's mostly referred to the Banner cycle. It's a 54 years panic cycle. To be honest, often it's sourced wrong in the internet. So if you find articles, the length, and it's not often referred the best, so be careful Googling the internet. In general, there are two key cycles which make up this static cycle chart. So he found an 8, 9, 10 year pig iron cycle highs. So a sequence of 8, 9, 10 years when we see highs in the pig iron cycle. And the same cycle then for lows, he found at 11, 9, 7 years. So this is one cycle. By the way, this averages to 9.2 years. If you read about it, it was just interesting. At this point in time, they just have not been able to detect fractionals of years. So for us, it's just so simple to do some cycle analysis with 9 point something years. In the year of 1872, they have not been able just to average cycles with fractionals of full years. So what they've now brought up here, the 8, 9, 10 year and the 11, 9, 7 year low cycle, it's just the 9.2 years cycle they've just found at that point in time. And the second key cycle is then so-called panic cycle, which has been 16, 18, 20 years repetition of panics. And if you add 16, 18 plus 20, you will arrive at a 54 years complete cycle when these panics repeat. 16, 18, 20 years. And you can now overlay, or what they have done, they have just overlaid these two key cycles. And this was also reviewed by our founder, Edward Dewey, in one of his main articles, so The Case for Cycles, which is one of the main works, and I always can recommend this article here, published 1967 from Dewey. And he used, so this prediction was made 1875. Dewey then analyzed in the year of 1967 what happened if we would have used this projection after it has been published. Yeah, so not looking into the past when they reveal their cycles, then moving forward. So after the year of 1872 until the year of 1939. Yeah, so Dewey just analyzed how important this cycle was. And his finding, as you can also read in this article, if you would have used these dates for trading, your percentage gains between the period here would have been 50 times than your losses. So Dewey also concluded that this is one of the most important cycles which have been shown in advance the points to buy and sell. Static cycle. And I mean, the story is fascinating. I mean, these guys, Tritch has put this cycle on a business card. Yeah. So it was just a business card where Tritch draw the cycle. He gave this business card to Benner, and Benner then wrote this article and published this cycle here. So we don't know whom to attribute here. But now let's get to the reason why I'm bringing this up to your attention here. If you just plot this cycle into the future, this is what it will read out when you just continue to the current point in time. So this is the count of this static cycle here, which should kind of give us an topping area 2019-16. And now look at this here down below. Just using this static cycle, which dates back to 1875. Yeah, 1875. Just plotting this static cycle into the future, where Dewey told us already in 1969 that this is one of the most significant cycles. This points to an important low, the year of 2023. Unbelievable, is it? So if you're looking for cycles within cycles alignment, here you are. This is a perfect cycles within cycles alignment. I mean, just please review the dynamic cycle analysis we did on the current global markets. Yeah, I'm not bringing this up just because I want to talk about it. The general perspective has not changed. Look at the inverted yield curve cycles. Look at the financial stress weekly cycles I pulled up during the last week. Look at the volatility cycles. They all now come into place. They all come into place. I showed you the weekly cycle pointing to a low in the year of 2023. Now, today, you have the 56 9-year cycle grid, 100 years old, thanks to David McMinn bringing this up to our attention again. The Banner cycle, published 1874, both in the grid. You will find the year of 2023, and moving forward, the Banner cycle also 2 points towards next year. Isn't this something? Please do your research on these 2 cycles. I think you will find a lot of knowledge if you just Google, read the Cycles magazine with the article I've just shown you. Think about the Banner cycle and then make up your mind how you can combine static cycles. Yeah, static cycles are just plotted forward into time. And now with the additional power of computers we have, where we can do dynamic cycle analysis just with a mouse click. Dynamic cycle analysis helps us to reveal the current phase, the current length, and the amplitude of the cycles in the markets. If this fit into a static cycle projection with dynamic cycles, with different time frames, weekly, daily, different analysis, this is what makes very interesting periods for a cycle analyst. What we are, what I'm in. I hope you liked a little bit the analysis. Thanks for sure joining me today in this cycle episode. I needed to pre-record this session, so therefore I cannot answer your questions live today. But I promise you, next week I will be live here at my desk. I need to do some business travel tomorrow or when you review the session here. But I will review your comments below this video. Please subscribe, please like, please forward this channel here. We want to push the education on cycles. We want to spread the knowledge on cycles. We want to ensure that cycle knowledge, which has been written over years ago, needs to be repeated, needs to be discussed here on the channel. That's why we are here. That's why we are the foundation for the study of cycles. Thanks for joining me today. Have a nice week and see you next week, Monday. Thank you. Bye.